VMJPod's Employee Brand Series. I'm David Macciocca, and joining me for this special Sydney edition is Brie Mason. Together, we're unpacking what's really working in employee brand today, from fresh ideas to actions driving real change inside leading organizations. Welcome to the VMJPod. We are unpacking employer brand. I'm David Macciocca.
I'm Brie Mason. And I'm Jess Tucci.
And we are so excited to have you here, Jessica. We're going to be talking about one message, one voice, aligning your sales and employer brand together globally too. So much to unpack. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So thanks for having me today. I've been working in the employer brand and people experience space for about the last 15 years. So I've spent the last 18 months or so helping a large professional services business launch a new global brand and a new global people value proposition, and sort of roll that out in Australia across both the external sort of PC market, but also internally across people experience. So yeah, lots to talk about today.
That's awesome. Like, there is so much there, and it excites me. Like, this is a topic because it's so
in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's in my wheelhouse. But I love that, like, there's that combination of thinking about obviously employer brand and people experience, and bringing that together in one wall and accountability. But also then thinking about how your brand comes to life for your people. Because I think that's a really big missed opportunity, really critical, but often employer brand starts more so with the external stuff. It's the talent attraction, it's the outward facing, less time spent on how do we make sure we're embedding with that commerce, delivering on that. Can you tell me a bit about how you tackled that?
Cool. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, as you said, it is super important that you actually sort of build from the inside out. I think, as you say, often overlooks. It's a missed opportunity that a lot of businesses just probably don't even consider to necessarily be important. But if I think, brand starts from the inside out, right? So everything is about brands. That then rolls through your people experience. And then it's your people delivery to your clients, right? And I think that's true not just for a service organization like a professional services, but, even your tech firms, they might be selling a product or something. People might be buying data center space as an example, but they're still dealing with people. So those people are servicing them, they're selling the contracts, they're setting them up. I think if you sort of nail that, that's when you get a really authentic employer brand and a really consistent and memorable experience from both a brand, but a people and a client experience point of view as well.
So the journey is pretty long if a company's thinking about undertaking that one message. Where do you start?
Yeah, I think you need to start with education. So think about, people need to understand what your brand promise is. They need to know how you got there, what and why is it important. And for us, when we started thinking about launching this new brand and this new people value proposition, what came first was the brand piece. And this was, off the back of a reaction to what was happening out in the market. It's a really tumultuous time for most businesses. We've got AI, we've got, lots of mega trends coming into play. In terms of like market share and market value, there's a trend towards 20% of the businesses sort of taking 80% of the market value. So for us, we knew we needed to adapt and help, ourselves be relevant. And also think about the profession and how it was going to be impacted by sort of technological change and AI. So that's where sort of this massive change came about. And then from where do you start? How do you roll this out, right? Massive. So start with what is your purpose? What are you here to serve? What value are you there to create for your customers and then for your people? So once you've got that sort of that brand promise really knuckled down, and you've done all the the fun sort of stuff around the visuals and the tone of voice and all of that, you then need to think about how does that reflect internally. So what does that promise? Okay, you know what that promise means in terms of like the why you're here, why you show up, but how does that reflect internally for your people? So what does that mean? You need to create in terms of culture, in terms of systems, processes, programs. What are you doing to support that brand promise for your people? So if it's not reflected internally, that's when things really start to break down. And I think to have a really strong brand, you need to have your people believe it.
What's the line that you're walking when you've got so many different job families and so many different locations, and you're okay, yes, if the people's the commodity, because that's going. They're consulting on site most of the time. How are you managing the differences between those regions, the job families, have one message?
Yeah, it was having one message is important, right? You think about the best brands in the world, the most powerful, memorable brands are consistent. And to use, probably the most used example in your space, McDonald's, the Macca's burgers and Macca's burgers, wherever you are, right? You walk into a Macca's restaurant, it's the same no matter where you are in the world. And really good brands, I think, need to sort of aim to get there as well. And so for us, professional services, global brand, but actually not a global corporation. So a network of corporations who are used to having a really loose sort of North Star in terms of direction, but then being really locally led. So to shift that was a huge piece of work, which our global team, I'm not taking credit for this, but they were amazing. You've got hundreds of thousands of people you need to bring on that journey. And so they started with educating the right sort of teams. So who are the people that are going to start to cascade this, to roll this out? So that's marketing, communications, employer brand, people and culture teams, and most importantly as well, leadership. So you need to get them all embedded and sort of, educated on what's why the change is occurring. So where does it come from? What it means, how you're designing it, and your aspirations for where you want to go. Because it is a long sort of, we're sort of thinking as this is, roll out there to, sort of 6 months, but then it's a sort of 3-year journey to really cascade that across the programs and the business to ensure that what we're saying is reflected internally. So we started with, education of those teams. Firstly, having sort of really fixed brand guidelines in terms of visuals, tone of voice, messaging. So really, you can't err off those key global messages, because that's when it starts to become fragmented and disjointed. And that's a place where we had been before. And in Australia, I was always like, oh, that global brand EVP doesn't really mean anything for us. It's, it's really stiff and what have you. So we'd go and design our own local EVP that, was hugely successful for us in the market, but didn't really serve the global brand ambition, right? So I think, first of all, before you launch something, you need to make sure it's going to work across your territory. So a hell of a lot of research around, what's happening out in the market in terms of market factors, changes in the market itself, but then also what talent want, what do you do really well as a business, and what sort of people do you need to get. And it's that intersection with those three things that I think sort of helps inform your flair brand and your brand. But just to go back to sort of how we got there, so fixed sort of brand guidelines, which you then cascade out and train people up. So lots of training, lots of, global monthly meetings or fortnightly meetings, toolkits.
What are some of the things that you're talking about in those meetings?
Yeah, so it sort of starts with, it all started with the why. Why are we here? What are we doing? Where do we want to get to? Then it started to talk about the tools that we'd equip people with across the business. So the templates, tone of voice materials, examples, all that sort of stuff. And then it talks about the ambition of making sure that, it's not just a slogan and a campaign, but it is a lived experience and how you get there. So that's the stuff around starting to think about the people journey internally. What is the people journey? What are the moments that matter across that people journey? And how locally are your programs or policies or structures designed to support that new sentiment?
How much of the project was focused internally before you went external?
Yeah, so we actually went both external and internal sort of at the same time. Obviously, there was a lot of pre-work.
I was thinking chicken or egg, like which
Yeah. And I think, for us, this came off the back of just needing to move, especially there were in Australia, as an example, we wanted to move fast because we just come off the back of a big reputational crisis. And so we were doing a lot of work ourselves to sort of shift things and rebuild trust with the market and with our people. And we knew this global change was coming and we wanted to align early and try and get, important to go to people first, absolutely. So we started with, with leadership, upper echelons of leadership, really locked down because you don't want anything leaking out to the market. With the greatest of intentions, people may, accidentally let something slip. But so started there and then launched to our people through globally aligned launch events. And it was up to the local regions to design them themselves with some support and guidance. That, a lot of people didn't know what the brand was going to look like. So it was really difficult to sort of design a launch experience and then just find out very quickly what the slogans were, what it looked like, and then go bang and get that done. But so we did that, and then very quickly afterwards launched to the market. But that was just a start, right? It's a long-term movement. It's not a moment, it's a movement. And the hard work really came after that in terms of starting to embed it in every single opportunity and touch point we could, in terms of internal communication, it's programs and things like that. So, yeah.
Oh, I like that. It's not a moment, it's a movement. And
I love it too.
and I'm assuming you want to measure the movement. How are you?
And the moments, right? Yeah. Measure the moments.
Because
the movement.
I can imagine if thinking about undertaking this huge project globally, it's like a mountain to climb, not a small one by any stretch of the imagination. But you're doing for a purpose. So how did you or are you thinking about measuring success of it globally to be?
Yeah. So this is still a work in progress, which the team there are working on now. But initially we were looking at it in two parts. So adoption and rollout. So how do you measure the change, that initial first change, and then after that, which I'll pause on that for a minute and dive into what we're looking at. So has everybody adopted the brand in terms of the look and feel stuff, and have they then are they actually using the right messages? So ensuring that nothing is anchored back to the old EVP or PVP or brand materials. And so we had I think it was 4 to 6 months to get that change underway, noting that different places around the world, different territories are at different sort of maturity levels in terms of their marketing and communications. So replacing all the old with new, basically. Making sure nothing that's out in market from a recruitment marketing or in fact flow brand point of view is aligned to the old brand, but it's all a fresh brand, it's the fresh slogan, it's the fresh messaging.
And that's all embedded through the candidate experience as well.
Yeah, so making sure, yes, so it's advertising, it's web, it's anywhere you show up externally in the market, that was sort of prioritized first. And then you start to cascade that through internal things, which is still important, But that's where you can have a little bit more time because, you know, and I think social media, I'll just a little tangent here, was a difficult one because social media is so much about being local and responding, you know, in real time to things, you know, trends or topics or comms or PR or whatever. And so it's kind of a hard one to change, but I think, you know, there's the sort of the core visual changes you can make to platforms and things like that. Then there's the messages, and if you're using any templates in your social media, you can do that, but it really comes through the stories you're starting to tell, and the narrative. So that's adoption, and then how do you measure the impact? And that's the big one right there. So how do you
Tell us all about it.
Yeah. So, you know, I think the approach we were taking was to look at the impact on people experience. So listen to the voice of your people, the voice of the candidate, and also behaviours, measuring behaviour change. And
Specifically,
yeah, so we had a whole set of behaviours which we had recently updated and we're talking about a lot internally in terms of especially coming off the back of you know, rebuilding trust, and aligning to the brand. So
it's more like values. Gang has been values, or
No,
it's separate?
yeah, separate. So we have values.
Yeah.
We have our purpose, we have our values, and we have our behaviors as well. So that might be things around what we expect in terms of leadership. So what does leadership mean at this company? What does collaboration mean? How do you go about collaboration? How do you know, driving curiosity as an example? You know, we've got quite a complex sort of sheet around, you know, trying to educate and inform and sort of really embed an understanding with people around the expectations of how we want you to show up. And that's the other side of the employer brand, right? This is what we give to you. This is our promise. This is our brand promise. This is our people promise. But in return, we expect you to deliver in this particular way. And that's, you know, because that is what impacts the business and, you know, client experience. How are you showing up when you're out in market representing us? Of course, you need to have the right structures in place. So if your reward and recognition strategy is not in service of those behaviors, so if you're rewarding them on behaviors, then you know it's not going to work. It's going to fall flat. Same with your learning and development. So that's where you sort of have that. This is where it starts: brand inside out, brand people, client. Our brand promise is this. To get there, we expect you to behave in this way. These are the programs and the processes and the you know, rewards structures that we're setting up to enable you to deliver on that promise and to enable you to sort of put that trust down out with the market.
This episode is brought to you by VMJ, the employee-generated content platform helping organizations tell their story through the voices of their people. Formerly known as VMJ Job, VMJ makes it simple to create once and repurpose everywhere. One employee video becomes blogs, quote cards, and social posts, all automatically edited, branded, and ready to share. Our AI-accelerated platform makes it easy to scale authentic storytelling, showcase your culture, and attract the right people. Ready to see what's possible? Visit videomy.co to learn more.
I just wanted to jump in because you mentioned before around the EVP being, it's essentially a good EVP is describing the give and the get. So we will deliver this value to you. In exchange, you will deliver this value back to us. We get quite overt with that value exchange in your proposition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's super important to be really clear in the messaging around this is the environment we're going to create and our promise to you, but in return we do expect this from you. Otherwise, there's just going to be a disconnect. People aren't going to know what they need to do or to live up to, and that's when you start to see those cracks in people going, oh, that EVP thing is just it's just a marketing slogan. It's not real. It's not authentic. And it's when leaders and leadership probably think of the employer brand or recruitment marketing or whatever as just a sort of a cost center, but not actually a part of the business that is there to actually drive real growth and value, which it absolutely is.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's get on to that train again. Measuring success, and why you would go ahead and undertake such a large project, because obviously you want to be.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about that? You spoke about what part of that, making sure the return is that everyone is using their out there, but the actual tangible return,
Yeah.
whether it be save money. Like, I'm assuming you're more than save money in basketball because it's people that.
Well, it's actually both, right? It's
where I was going.
yeah. It's make money. It's growth. I mean, especially for a business that's in the business, so it's selling people expertise. Your brand is your people are your brands, and in order to build trust and credibility, and to have people, CEOs, CFOs, very senior people, come to your business and say, you know what, I really need some help here on this thing, and it's it's their reputation on the line, it's their business on the line, it's their job on the line essentially if they don't get it right. You need to ensure that there is very deep trust in the services you're offering to those people, and that they can expect there's certain, and this is where the consistency thing comes back into it that we were talking about earlier around consistency in experience and brand and value prop. You need to ensure that wherever they go, whoever they go to, they can expect a certain level of precise behaviors, a certain level of credibility, expertise, and value being served. So measurement, yes, it's always about, we actually put this on the scorecard, the firm-wide scorecard.
Tell us about scorecard.
So a scorecard is what a business sort of puts together and to measure their strategy and their success. So often have things around revenue and growth and what have you, but will have other variables on there as well, based on who they are or what they're trying to achieve. But for us, we had a piece on there around guest place to work. And achieving that, and it was important that we achieved that, so that because we were
Recognition.
Recognition and coming off the back of a very challenging sort of 2 years prior, we needed to build up that credibility and that trust again internally, make sure we had a place where people were able to deliver.
So that's the grand final.
That's the grand final. So we approached this program in stages.
Yeah.
First, we looked at adoption and activation. Has everyone actually embedded the brand and the PVP into their channels and into their touch points? Are the key messages showing up in town halls, in people materials, on SharePoint sites, in campaign assets on websites? And are we seeing consistency, right? Critical.
So the adoption of the new AVP.
Adoption of the new brand, new EVP. We measured, were those messages actually showing in the key moments that matter across the people experience, right? So you can measure your internal people experience a number of ways. So you put sentiment surveys, you pulse surveys and things like that, and you might be looking for any percentage uplift or change in, overall engagement index, but that could be made up of questions like, I would recommend this place as somewhere others might want to work. My values align to the values of the business. I expect to be working here in the next 6 to 18 months. I'm not looking for another job. So it's sort of the NPS sort of stuff internally. Then you can look at candidate NPS, and you can measure that across the candidate journey as well. So
So it's talent pooling that's increasing when you go to the market, and it's attrition or retention metrics that you're swimming?
Yeah, so we look at attrition and retention of top talent in particular. So are we improving our retention metrics? And when you're looking at attraction metrics, you might want to not necessarily just look at number of applications, because that might not be the right measure for you. If you're in a hiring 200 people and you're getting 20,000 applications, that's a bit of a pain in the butt. But it could be quality, conversion of hire.
Yeah.
Is a really good one as well. I think
What about referrals? Does that classify at all?
we look at them, but it's not one of our core metrics. Yeah. But absolutely. I mean, that goes back to that. I would recommend this is at least the way. Yeah. I was just going to say as well. So if we were looking, starting with the sort of brand metrics, and it's hard to say measure consideration, but you could perhaps look at has your share of market improved, and that's sort of language that maybe your execs might respond. There's still, you've got all your sort of vanity metrics, like you're talking about employer grant, how many people applied, what was engagement, all that sort of stuff.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you pitch?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. How do you measure share of market?
So
It might be a crooked part, but is there something, there's a straight on line they might be able to take by measuring? You can share.
So I think there's probably a couple of different ways you could look at it. One way we looked at that was share of voice is on social. So how would that improved? And so we were looking to go from 8th place up to 2nd place or what have you. So that's a way to look at it, not just around numbers of followers, things like that as well. That's another way. I think we also look at rankings. I know this is super contentious, but still, something we thought was really important, because it did, even if it may be a bit contentious, it still does reflect in some way consideration in the market for our brand through different channels. And one of the other things it does is it actually then just does other brand equity work for us. So, so-and-so business is rated, considered one of the best employees in market by XYZ. So, even if you're getting those metrics in a roundabout way, it still helps how to tell the story.
So it's really interesting because we touched on measurement and we spoke about TA metrics, but it seems like the juice is on marketing, the marketing metrics that you're talking about, like share of the space, trying to rank high as an employer of choice, which is not traditionally how employer branders who sit within talent acquisition really think about measuring success. I'm curious to know, where are you, or who are you reporting to, and maybe you can answer that in the end. I'm assuming it's not in talent acquisition.
No, so during my time, I was predominantly sitting in our OD team. And so the beauty of that, obviously I was looking after people experience and employer brand, which was bringing for the first time 2 teams together under the one umbrella. And I think what was great about that is you're actually looking at the entire journey there. So you're looking at everything from being out in the market attracting talent, but you don't just stop once an offer's out and then hand that over and not think about it. It's continuing that experience from the candidate experience through to the people experience, right through across all those moments that matter: joining, moving, recognition, reward, learning, growth through the exit. And so we, then also work really closely with our alumni team to ensure that our messaging was reflected through everything that we're doing. So sat in OD, and the beauty of that is you're in the team that's looking after culture. We looked after what we called people experience, which was we measured our people engagement. So it's running those annual or biannual big engagement surveys, but also, any other sort of listening touch points. And so we were trying to get a really holistic view of all the different listening touch points so that we could synthesize that data, understand it, and then turn it into recommendations to take to our executives and our CPO, which would then inform our people strategy. So it's that data that is then used to say, okay, the 3 big things we're going to focus on this year as a people team is XYZ, whether it's leadership, reward, or whatever it is that makes sense for your business.
I can see the benefit of that. What are your thoughts on that one?
Oh, makes complete sense. I think it's dependent. Originally, employer brand started more so as it's recruitment marketing. Right? It was actually
Give more applications.
Yeah. As a result of struggling to fill roles for the right people, I guess. It's great to see how well you definitely matured as an industry. As we think about, it's not just about bringing people door now, it's actually making sure all the sold is what they're getting. Otherwise, we lose people just as quickly. So it's so critical that you're able to really embed it across that pipeline.
Yeah. I'll add to that though. So whilst we sat there, I spent, probably 70% of my time actually working with the marketing comms and brand teams. So
I was going to ask, what's the skill set in your team?
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming it's not just creating content like a lot of the low branders do, obsessed on content, but you're talking about pulse surveys and thinking internal.
Internal
comms and tell us about
the
makeup of the team.
It was it's sort of a mixed bag, and it was us bringing the team together. So it was just sort of working out within LinkedIn and what did that team even do actually, and so it started, initially looking at it, that engagement side, but also looking at some of the culture transformation and firm-wide transformation. Working with a few people there. So we had an org side, we had a seasoned HR and learning practitioner, and we had creatives and your more traditional employee branding, some of who had come from the recruited side. But I think it doesn't. What matters most is that you're collaborating with everybody across the business. So you have to work hand in glove with your brand marketing teams. You have to work hand in glove with your comms team, because they're the people who are then cascading that message out. And so we would be designing all of the communications together as one team. And, it wasn't always like that. And I think we had to work really hard to all come together as essentially one team. But that's what then made it just fantastic in terms of the consistency of what we were doing and the understanding across those teams and then across the business. So, this is one unified front. That all these little different pieces that together make sense. So, for example, when we were obviously TA is there, TA and a lot of TA. So just not forgetting TA. They're there. So, when we launch new people products, or refresh our people products or go, it's performance cycle time of year or whatever, it's goal setting. How is that program of goal setting being communicated to the business? No, that's where we come in and say, hey, new brands, new sentiment, new tone of voice, new message. Make sure that everything you're saying has that messaging embedded in the why. We're doing this because...
When you had a new piece of work that you had to introduce to the talent acquisition team, how was that received?
So when we had a new piece of work that we were launching to the business, we absolutely, because this was all new, worked hand in side by side with them. So we had, if we go back to how do we roll this out, we'd set up activation teams across people and culture, which started around informing and educating and providing toolkits and things like that, but then also working as sort of advisors to them as they're designing their new program, or they're not in program, refreshing it for the year. And so we'd help them say, you know what, instead of talking about, leadership being this, why don't you talk about leadership in this way? Because that's what we're saying. That's the new EVP. When we're setting goals, let's talk about why that's important and how it relates back to our EVP. And the impact that setting a goal will then have on your performance down the road, and then the impact that performance has on your reward, or your reputation out in market with clients. So it's about the story, telling the story right from the go, and how it actually feeds through. And we talk about storytelling a lot, but we talk about it a lot in terms of campaigning, I think, and this is internal storytelling about why processes and structures exist, and how they're going to help by leaning into those things, how they're going to actually help improve your experience.
You mentioned the scorecard metric being around breakfast work. Is that the award you're talking about, or was it other measures that can that?
Yeah, it's just about us and our people feeling like the company is a great place to work. And so how is that reflected? And more, how is it measured? It's measured through things like that relate to engagement, such as intent to stay, attrition, retention, and fund reformers, recommendations of the business. And so we would gather, this is where we started, right? This is where we started. It's not where we'll necessarily, there's goals to sort of expand that definition to not just be an internal metric, but to be an external metric as well, that we needed to start internally first, because we felt that, if you don't start with your people, then it's not going to be an authentic promise out to the market. So we measured that through our engagement score metrics, and we're looking for percentage increases on some of those things, also around some of our behaviours, and which were also measured for our engagement index, and also other, I won't go into detail about this, but, there's things you can look at around like cultural measurements, ethics, things like that as well. So there's a spectrum of different measures across lots of different teams that you may not necessarily think of when you're thinking about employer brand, but this is where it goes back to, it is a driver of business performance. And if you actually link in with all those other teams across the business, you start to paint a really robust picture of how culture and brand and people experience inform how you show up externally.
Professional services, it is very obvious, because the impact of people you bring in, quality of them,
Yes.
are directly will impact the success of your organisation. It's not as obvious that direct. There's not a direct correlation in other corporates or other type of organisations.
There are in cohorts.
Yes.
For written sales, marketing.
Yes. So, but we know in theory, obviously, the goal is to bring in the best people you can in the organisation, the best talent for a better and the organisation succeed inside. Obvious in professional services. Do you have any advice for other industries where it's not so obvious in how to help us tell that story of the value and importance of investing in your employer brand?
Yeah, I think sometimes it may feel like it's not as relevant, especially if you're a B2C business silly two-faced or something. But I think, and I'll refer back to my experience working in a tech company. They were selling products, and so you'd think it's all about the performance of those products, but it's about the delivery of those products. And so someone needs to still buy from you first. So how, what is obviously your reputation is based on the performance of that product. Who is maintaining that? Who's ensuring that's happening? Who's out in market talking to the buyers of that product? It's your people. And so I think, that is perhaps one way you can start to some advice, I would maybe think about, what's the sort of the long tail. So don't just look at that one sort of point in time, but think about, okay, what's happening from in the supply chain, in the sales, part of that process, in the account management and the maintenance, or what have you. So it's probably easier for some businesses to tell that story, but I think there's probably a story to tell for most places. And I'm gonna reference an old continuous work at Brie Technology Group. They literally wrote a book on why culture matters, I haven't read it actually, but I remember when I was working there, it was they were getting into the data center space, which is massive up everyone now as well, right? And they were looking to people who did it really well in the States, so in America, and it was the businesses who were all about their people, and it was the people who were the brand. So like at Rackspace, and I can't remember what their EVP slogan was at the time, but it was representative of what they were trying to do for their clients with that, because how do you differentiate the data center? No, so it's about the service or the quality of the people you will be working outside or not.
So Jessica, wrapping up, what are your key takeaways for us? 3 things.
I actually wrote 3 things down, so I'm going to look at my notes so I get them right. So 1 second. I'd say start inside, right? If employees don't believe it, candidates and clients won't either. Yeah. 2, simplify your story. So if people can't repeat it, then they can't live it. So a really simple, clear message. And 3, measure belief, not just reach. So it's not about how loud you shout. It's about whether or not the message is landing. And, key to that is, bringing your teams on the journey. So brands, marketing, etc., everyone. So you're all speaking one language, you're all singing from the same hymn book, and you have that unified people story to stand behind. So that's what I say. I think, the moment it lands is when your leaders start talking about it, and they're like, when I start to hear our execs say, this is what our PVP means to me, I'm like, yes, we've done it. So
Love that.
Love that too.
Such a fascinating episode, and I can't wait to listen to it again. Jessica Tucci, thank you for now.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks.